this San Bernardino terrorist, Saeed Farouk, apparently born in the United States. And some are now saying that he may have married a terrorist, Tashfeen Malik, one of the two shooters, along with Farouk, who murdered 14 people, wounded 21 others in San Bernardino, California on Wednesday. And they're saying she may have radicalized her husband and a co-assailant, county restaurant inspector Saeed Farouk. That's according to Fox News. What does it mean to get radicalized? And I thought it would be interesting to get into that this morning and find out a little bit more about that whole process. And for that, we turn to Princella Smith, who's a counterterrorism specialist, studied counterterrorism at the Lauder School of Government in Israel, and is a former director of communications on Capitol Hill, and joins us here this morning on the Gary Sutton Show. Mr. Smith, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
When you look at the process of first of all, I guess I want to come back and say, as you look at this right now, is this different from the other kinds of terrorism that we have seen so far, that you have seen? Tell us a little bit about what you saw this week through your eyes as a person who's a specialist in this field.
There's a couple of things going on here. One of the reasons why this has intrigued, people around the world, and I don't mean that positively, people who are just looking at it with such interest, is because it was a husband-wife duo, okay? And you don't see a lot of it covered, but actually, back in 2005, if you remember the Jordanian attacks that were on the Radisson Hotel, that was a husband and wife that did that. And actually, it's been a growing trend that someone's spouse actually indoctrinates them or radicalizes them. The one unusual thing is it's usually the other way around. It's usually a husband who brings the wife in. In this case, it appears to be the wife who brought the husband in. So it may be unusual per se, but it's not like it would be unlikely, if that makes sense. It's not like it wouldn't or couldn't happen. The other thing that's interesting about this attack is that it even has law enforcement officials scratching their head. I think we can all conclude that it was a terrorist attack, but on one hand, it looks very sophisticated, right, because of all the ammunition and the bombs. And, they even had the control bombs that you use with the little toy car, strapped with the utility vest, booby-trapped their apartment. That looks very organized. But then if you look at the way they carried it out, it actually looks pretty reckless. And so this is a thing that is, I guess, is of concern of many American citizens, is how many people are being secretly radicalized and are slowly plotting, attacks like this, and who may go rogue one day. And what it appears to be is that there was probably a larger plot that they were going to carry out, and thank God for our law enforcement officials who killed them, because it looked like they were going to leave that and go do another one. However, something happened at that party that set them off, and they decided to just prematurely, go blow some people up, go shoot some people up.
Did it set them off, or do you think they were casing it? That's one of the questions that a lot of us have. Apparently, there were some words exchanged, and apparently this guy was at the party last year, the same kind of party, and nothing happened there. And yet, at the same time, the way this was carried out, you look at it, and again, this is from the untrained ear and eye. I'm coming to you as a trained person on this, so I'm just offering an untrained opinion here. But it looks like there was a lot more to this than just being upset with somebody at a party.
Oh, absolutely. Again, if you look at the evidence at their home, and I realize people are at work right now and probably haven't had time to be a news junkie like me and watch every single thing that's told. But literally hourly, they are finding more things at their apartment, or they're finding more things that he searched on the internet. If you look at the fact that they removed the hard drives from their laptops, they broke their cell phones. These were things that they planned to do to not be tracked.
Right.
So that should let you know this was a well thought out attack. However, it is important to note that the people they killed first were their supervisors.
Right.
And it is important to note that more than one eyewitness said there was a conflict. So again, what most people are saying, what even the FBI is being careful what they're putting out right now, and I appreciate it. But what it appears to be is that there was a larger plan of attack, but something set them off. Now, remember, this was a Christmas party. So, it could have been anything from somebody trying to proselyte them, to make them become Christians. Somebody could have just said something sideways. Who knows what set these lunatics off. But a question that I'm getting a lot on the radio shows is, how does someone become radicalized, right? Because it seemed like this guy sort of slipped under the radar, but there's 4 steps that we learned about. You have the pre-radicalization, identification, indoctrination, and action. And groups like ISIS, which is why I'm wanting to tie this to ISIS, groups like ISIS have mastered all 4 of those steps because they take the nicest, calmest, even most normal, just regular guy-type Muslim, and women too, and they start feeding them this propaganda. ISIS is beating the Western world in propaganda.
Let's talk a little bit about each of those steps and break them down kind of precisely. So, for example, if what are we seeing ISIS do in that very first step that you mentioned, which is kind of the pre-radicalization step?
Well, okay, so in the pre-radicalization, you have people, they identify kind of like highly religious people. Remember this guy said he was a Sunni Muslim.
Right.
And he was very religious, and people knew him as just a very religious, peaceful kind of guy. Well, they find these people, they usually find the people who are stronger believers, maybe they want more acceptance in their faith, and they start reinterpreting the faith of Islam.
And let me just interject there. When they find them, are they finding them just on the internet? Are they finding them in their mosques?
Yes,
how do they find them?
They have. Yes, when I went to school for this, I was amazed and a bit terrified, which no pun intended on the word terrorist. But I was amazed and a bit terrified at how good they are on the internet. There are a lot of recruitment sites online that don't initially appear to be recruitment sites. It's just, here's a nice place for all the Muslims of the world, to come and to communicate with each other and talk. It's sort of like, their own little social network. There's several of them out there. And what they do is they start micro-targeting. And they find guys like this guy, he's young. He probably didn't put up that he was married yet because he hadn't been married that long. So they usually find him single. And then they find the ones in the Western world who maybe you're not quite happy with your job. And so they just start telling you, here's your real identity, and this is who you really are, and the white man doesn't understand you, and the Western world doesn't really get this. They're oppressing us. And they begin to tell them things like, if Jerusalem was in the control, in the Muslims' control, then there wouldn't be all these problems in the world. As a matter of fact, after the Paris attacks, there was a Muslim who said that on record to Israel Hayom newspaper. They said none of these attacks would be happening if the Muslims were controlling Jerusalem. So they just slowly start, real talk. So they slowly start seeping this in, right, and start giving them an elevated opinion of themselves. Like you're above everyone else. The religion of Islam is more sophisticated, it's more advanced. Everyone else has a religion that is steeped in oppressing others, and they particularly target Christians and Jews. So that's like the pre-radicalization. They don't come on real strong. They just sort of kind of slide in there.
Now, how do you, is there and this is probably a really dumb question, so forgive me. Is there an average amount of time that it takes, or does it just depend on each different personality that you're coming across here?
You know what? There really isn't. That's a question that like a lot of real long-time terrorist experts get is how long does this take, or at what point do they really snatch them? It's not really. It's really dependent on the individual. So, for example, with this guy, everybody keeps asking, well, how do we know? We couldn't even track him, and this is scary because he seemed like a normal guy. Well, in actuality, he was communicating with people who are on the FBI watch list. And what I would not be surprised happens or comes out here within the next week is this new kind of stepped up level of security to where not only people on watch lists are being watched, but anybody who's talking to people on watch lists.
Right.
Because what they did was put him in a lower tier. He was not really even being flagged because they split it. They say, okay, are they talking to people who are on the list being watched for possible terrorism finance, or are they on the list for possible terrorism, activism, as in like actually going out and practicing some attack? And so he was contacting rather lower level watch list people. So this just, you see what I'm saying? So just
absolutely see what you're saying.
Sort of slid under the radar. It wasn't really watched that carefully.
So we come back to all those arguments with the NSA and so forth, and we start saying, well, maybe, we need to be watching some people here who are talking to these guys or to these ladies or these people on the website. Give us a second step. Take us into that second step now, some specifics there.
All right, so in the second step, it's called identification, right? So they start alienate them from their former lives. They start sort of like putting them with other like-minded individuals. They start saying, you need to do things, to prove your worth and your dedication to Islam. So if you notice, he went to Saudi Arabia several times, right? He went remember, he was born in America. Everybody needs to remember this. This man was born in America to Pakistani immigrants. He had not been over there that much, or maybe he did when he was a child. But all of a sudden, you're not from Pakistan. You're not going to Pakistan. Or excuse me, you're from Pakistan, but you're not going to Pakistan. You're going to Saudi Arabia, which is there's a lot of Sunni Muslims there, right? So it's like you need to really start identifying with your people. He made the pilgrimage, the Hajj, they called it. They call for every Muslim, if possible, if they can, have the means to travel, to do that.
You have to go to Mecca once in your lifetime at least, yeah.
Exactly, okay? Then if you notice, it's like you need to take a wife, right? You need to really get together, start procreating, start making more Muslim babies. This is something that a lot of people in America do know. In the process of radicalizing Muslims, they tell them the first thing you do is you marry in. You got to get a union of some sort and spread your seed, get out there. So he starts getting on an online dating site, right? Remember they said he found his wife on an online dating site.
Right. Okay,
so he goes to Saudi Arabia. He comes back with her. They get a 90-day visa. Okay, and that enables, it's what the slang of it is called like the engagement visa or whatever. So it allows him to get engaged to her. So then it's like more of your identity. Who are you? And what's widely being reported now is that she probably radicalized him. Okay? Then the third step, it's the indoctrination. So like I just said, okay, you marry this lady. Okay, then she starts telling you all, now it's like, now you're getting left field. You're even really leaving Islam and you're just sort of, the white man is evil. Names like that they call Jews that I don't want to say on the radio.
Sure.
Okay, then they say there's some type of action that's required to support and further the cause. Okay, but it's like, well, how do I do that? Well, we're going to, there's an extensive vetting and operational tests, and they start saying, are you willing to do such an attack? So this is where I think the communication with these FBI people come in, right? With the people that were on the FBI list, is right about this third step. Okay, when it's like, who are you really? Are you really in the movement? Are you really committed? So think about this. How long must it have taken them to collect all that ammo they had in the house? All those pipe bombs they created. Okay, so that's like the indoctrination step. And the sad part about this is that the neighbor has now come out to several media outlets.
I saw this, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to seem racist, but I thought it was really weird that he came back home from Saudi Arabia. All of a sudden his beard is getting long. All of a sudden all these packages are coming to their house. I thought it was weird. But then in the same frame, you see them out in the yard playing with their little baby.
Right.
So they just seem like this happy little family. So it's like, what's going on there? But again, just this slow, indoctrination.
Well, I want to take a quick break here. Let's come to that last part because that's the important part. How do you get someone to go over the top and say, okay, now, I'm going to go out there and kill people and maybe even give up my life here in the long run? We're going to ask that question of Princella Smith, coming back, a counterterrorism specialist who is a former counterterrorism studied at the Lauder School of Government in Israel and is a former director of communications on Capitol Hill. Back with us here on the Gary Sutton Show as we take an in-depth look at who this Syed Farook actually was and how did he get radicalized. That's a question here on the Gary Sutton Show. Back with more right after this. Welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA. Princella Smith is a counterterrorism specialist back with us here on WSBA. And, it's interesting. You're saying you think that there was going to be a connection to ISIS, and I'm just reading the crawl right now on CNN News this morning under breaking news that investigators find an ISIS connection in the shooting. So there you have it.
Of course.
Yeah. So not surprising.
I mean, that's not I mean, any of these law enforcement officials or anybody who, even like me, there's several people that have studied counterterrorism or what have you, could easily draw this connection. And they're also saying it looked like it was sort of like a self-radicalization, which is that's why I was going through those steps.
Right.
It looks like his wife probably had a lot to do with this. But this is the thing that makes ISIS more challenging to fight against than, say, like an Al-Qaeda or something like that, because ISIS they have become more sophisticated. So I told you about how they go online and target people, but also they are they're not really putting out the message of go kill yourself, go strap your bomb and be a martyr. They're like, hey, listen, we have money for you. We have prestige for you. You're going to be lifted up in the Islamic community. If you've noticed with a lot of these attacks, they've rushed back to some remote computer somewhere and loaded the video, and then they sent out some message, Obama, this is your fault, death to America, kind of like what they did with these beheadings. We want to really scare you, and no, we're not going to kill ourselves. Like, you're going to have to.
So, in other words, a true terrorism is going to be you not only do it, but you get it up there so everybody sees that you do it.
Yes.
And that you live to kind of tell about it a little bit here and brag about it out there. You were talking about the fourth step, and I want to come back and ask you on the backside of this fourth step explanation of why they stayed right there in the area. Was it because they wanted to get everything out in their computer? But give us that fourth step, because you were getting ready to go into that before we went to the break.
Yeah, I mean, so I think, again, the fourth step, the obvious one, is called action. And that's the obvious and unfortunate step. In the final stage, the action is accomplished through several means. Again, you actually are in a terrorist attack or jihad. You facilitate the attack. You're doing recruitment, or you're doing financing. And this even sort of goes back up to an earlier step when I said he starts communicating with the people who are on the FBI watch list. The reason why he may not have been flagged is because maybe he was just communicating with somebody who is maybe looked at from being a source of financing, but you can't really prove it yet. Somebody like that, the FBI is not watching as intently as someone who is, okay, look, we caught him, we bugged his phone, and he's planning an attack. So what a lot of people don't understand is that the FBI thwarts attacks daily. I think the average American would be scared to know how many attacks they thwart daily. So what it looked like was this guy's step of action might not have been flagged in the system because he may not have been communicating about violence as much as maybe about money or financing or something to that effect. But clearly we all know now that he planned to do a violent attack. So that was the unfortunate choice that he made for the step 4.
You mentioned about the fiancé visa. Is this something relatively new, or have we had this in play for a long time about bringing a visa, bringing a fiancé back here on a certain visa?
No, actually, I mean, we've done this in other countries as well. Or from other countries as well. That's not really an uncommon thing. That's why so many people want to marry an American, just so they can get, the American citizenship.
Free pass to get home. Yeah,
wasn't really. Yeah, I mean, even that wasn't really a flag.
Right.
To be honest. I mean, if you just really are looking at this, I mean, several people do that. I would say the largest flag would have been the several trips to Saudi Arabia, this constant communication with people who are on the FBI track list, and then the unfortunate incident of the neighbor not wanting to report. The government says, if you see something, say something. But the irony of that is we say, see something, say something, but then we have a president on an apology tour trying to accuse Americans of being anti-Muslim and
racist, yeah, and all that kind of stuff. Let me ask you two final questions here, Princella, because this has been fascinating to learn how they think. In your study of this so far, and being a person that is involved in understanding this kind of mind, what is it that we don't get? I mean, what is this just strictly an ideology that is at war with the West, at war specifically with our country? And the other thing, more specific to that incident, why would they stick around in the area within 2 miles hours afterward? Were they getting ready to do it again? Or were they getting ready to just get information out there? What do you think might have been in play there?
So I want to answer the second question first. I 100% believe that there was a larger attack plan. And something that I said several times when I did several interviews yesterday was, if you notice, they did not speed off. They didn't run away. They didn't. They didn't do a suicide attack. They wanted to do a lot more harm. And this is where our hats are off to these elected officials for thwarting it and go ahead and killing them. Because when they found the SUV, if you saw the bullet-ridden SUV, they decided we're just going to kill them. A lot of people would have said, arrest them, take them in for questioning, find out what their sources were, and find out. They didn't want to find out. The law enforcement officials said, let's kill them. We got to get them. And good, rightly so, because if you look at everything that they had on them, everything that was in the car, in the vehicles, it appeared that they were going to plan an even bigger attack. Again, their home was completely booby-trapped with all these incidents. So, yeah, I definitely believe that probably we could have been talking about something a lot sadder than 14 people dying. And then to your previous question, I do think that it is difficult for Americans to understand that this is a religious war, because America is not. We are so not geared to that.
Right.
So, for example, I lived in Israel, and I've been to several places in the Middle East. We don't understand how free we are in America to just be whatever religion we want, or to not even have a religion if we don't want to. In other countries, they'll kill you for this. In places where radical Islam is practiced, people who are gay are killed, hanged in public, thrown off a cliff. If a woman is raped, she has to have 4 male witnesses to corroborate that she was raped. The complete mindset is totally different from the United States. So we don't understand the concept of a religious war. And I want to clarify, it's not a war against Islam, it's a war against radical Islam. ISIS is a radical end of the Sunni Muslims. It's not all the Sunni Muslims. But we don't understand. I don't think we conceptualize this. And then it doesn't help that our president refuses to use the term radical Islam when, in fact, other Arab nations use the term radical Islam.
Right. I
think it's one big, politically correct nice fest, and unfortunately, I think there is probably going to be another attack, and it's probably going to be worse than this one.
Princella, I appreciate you being with us this morning. I hope we can tap on your expertise again, and I hope it's not too soon, but again, we're watching these things happen way too much, way too much regularity around the country and the world. Thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning. I look forward to our next talk very soon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Princella Smith, counterterrorism specialist, with us on the Gary Sutton Show, taking you inside the radicalization of a person. Did it happen in this particular case? Well, it certainly appears that may be the way it was.